Hello, hello. We are live. Welcome to today's Q&A with me, Chef Frank. I am the founder of Oh My Loaf and Eat Like a Vegan Chef. So today we are going to talk about um, what's wrong with, our gluten-free breads, the biggest mistakes that most people do when baking gluten-free bread. So I'm here to answer all your questions. Um, Feel free to post your questions in the chat, and I will go through them one by one. Okay. So, but before we get to the Q&A, I would like to talk a little bit about myself. And yeah, so I'm the founder of Oh My Loaf, which is a bread mix, gluten-free bread mix company. And the reason why I did this is about 2 years ago, I went gluten free because I realized gluten didn't um, really, it, didn't work with me. So I let go of gluten and I went to the supermarket. I tried to buy some gluten free bread, and guess what? I couldn't find any that I liked. I the gluten free bread that you get in the supermarket, with some exceptions, either have eggs in there or are not plant based at all. Because as you know, I'm a vegan and I try to stick to it, stick to it. So from that point of view, it was quite difficult to find the right bread. Um, before I continue, if anyone is joining us, please say hello in the chat and say your name and where you're from. It would be nice because then I know who I'm talking to. Thank you so much. Um, okay, good. So let me put the chat on. Let's see if someone is. Okay, cool. Um, welcome. So the reason is because I didn't feel well with eating bread, regular bread, because of the gluten. So I let it go, and um, once I let it go, I felt much better. So the thing is, finding gluten-free bread in the supermarket was so difficult because the ones that I had were falling apart and or didn't taste right or taste like cardboard. I didn't like it at all. So then I said to myself, okay, since I'm a chef, why don't I do it myself? And I researched and I created new recipes. So now, to make a long story short, after 2 years of practicing, of 2 years of baking gluten-free bread, now I'm more in a position of um, having figured it out, what's wrong, um, and how to do the right gluten-free bread. Okay, so feel free to type your answers in the comments and in the chat box, and I will answer them. And in the meanwhile, I will answer a few questions that have been sent to me via email. And okay, so the number one question is, why is gluten-free bread so hard to bake at home? Okay, first of all, um, gluten-free bread and regular bread, you cannot compare. Gluten-free bread, um, obviously the gluten is missing. The gluten is the fundamental part in wheat bread that keeps it elastic and absorbs the water and makes the bread beautifully, and lets it rise properly. Obviously, the yeast is for that, but the gluten keeps it together. That's the main reason why wheat bread is so easy to do. But that's not the only culprit. There's a lot of other things that come to play when it comes to gluten-free bread. So um, we need to have binders, because since we don't have gluten. Gluten is the binder in wheat bread. We got to find a different binder, and that binder is psyllium husk, for instance. Flax seeds works as well, and chia seeds work also well. But I have realized that psyllium husk is definitely the one to go. Okay, um, what's next? So the moisture in gluten-free bread is very, very important. Um, you cannot compare this to wheat bread. Wheat bread uses about 70% per baker's percentage. I will get to this in a moment. And with gluten-free bread, we use a lot more water than in wheat bread. Okay, so obviously the recipe you have is also very, very important. Um, if the recipe doesn't work, obviously, uh, if it's not properly calculated, it's not going to work. So these are the basic misconceptions of why gluten-free bread is so difficult to bake. Um, so what are the mistakes that people do when they bake gluten-free bread? As I mentioned before, it's the water content. Before I go to the water content, I'd like to talk about baker's percentage. Baker's percentage refers to the flour in bread. Whether it's wheat bread or gluten-free bread, the flour is 100% of the recipe. Even though you add psyllium husk, you add yeast, you add sugar, salt, whatever it is, only the flour counts to the baker's percentage. And from that baker's percentage, you know how much water you have to add. You know how much yeast you have to add. And, all these things. Very, very important. So um, the flour mixture is also very important. Yes, you can make gluten-free bread from one flour, but it's usually very tricky to get it right. I suggest that you use 2 to 3 different kind of gluten-free flours, mix them together. For instance, like millet and oat, and then you add half of the amount of that flour in sorghum maybe. Sorghum is a high protein flour that keeps it together. If you add too much sorghum to it, it's going to fall apart because it's too much sorghum in there. So um, what I would like you to do is find a mixture that works for you. I know it's easier said than done, but I'll give you a few hints later. Um, so once you have the baker's percentage, that's when you add your psyllium husk. Psyllium husk is usually between 4 to 6% of the baker's percentage. So if you have 100% flour, you would add 4 to 6% of that in psyllium husk. That will keep your loaf together. And I hear a lot of people asking me, "Can you give me a recipe? Can you give me a recipe?" It's yes, I can, absolutely. But here's the thing: if I give you a recipe, you make it and it works, but you don't know why it worked. So what I would like you to do is learn the different scenarios of a gluten-free bread, so that if you want to change the recipe, if you want to add or subtract or add flavors to it or add nuts or anything else to it, then the whole recipe is completely different. But if you know the basics of gluten-free bread, then it is much easier for you. So psyllium husk, the binder is about 4 to 6%. That's really, really important. The liquid, also very important. If you, again, baker's percentage, I prefer to put between 100 and 120% of liquid to the baker's percentage. So let's say we have 100, just to say 1,000 grams of flour altogether, then I would add between 1,000 and 1,200 gram or milliliter, it's both the same, in water, to the mixture. So don't make the mistake that you weigh the entire dough and then you add 100 or 120% of water to it. Then you have too much water in the dough. So it's only flour that counts towards the biggest percentage. That's very important. Wheat flour or wheat bread uses about 70% of moisture. So it's a huge difference. And then of course, if it depends if you live high in the mountains or if you live like me at sea level, it's very, very different. So I don't have any problems, but usually people who live in the higher mountains or in the mountains have issues with the bread rising or rising too fast. So that's usually an issue there. So to make it easier on you, you just use a lot less yeast when it comes in higher areas. Okay, I see we have a few people who joined us. If you don't mind saying hello in the chat and say your name and where you're from, so I know I'm talking to someone and not just to myself here on the chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So today's theme is a Q&A, and we'll talk about issues that we have about baking gluten-free bread. Let me get a little bit of water here. Getting a sorry about that. So in today's Q&A, we talk about what's wrong with baking gluten-free bread. And I was talking about a few points before. Anyone who's listening to the recording, absolutely, you can obviously listen to it again, or place your questions in the comments and I will answer it later. Okay, so the next question is that I have on file here that someone sent me. Why is my gluten-free bread heavy, or why is it dry? So again, this comes down to obviously the moisture and the binder. The binder is psyllium husk, how much psyllium husk you have added to it. Again, 4 to 6% is the right one, and moisture between 100 and 120%. So these are the keys. The next one is, if you, let's say you did everything right and the bread still comes out gummy, that's because you didn't bake it long enough. Gluten-free bread needs a much longer baking time than wheat bread. So it's about, in most cases, between 60 and 90 minutes of baking. Another formula that's very important, let's say you do everything right with the recipe. One more thing, how I realize if the bread is cooked properly or not, is to weigh the dough before it bakes and after. So you want to lose about 10 to 12, up to 15% in moisture in your bread. So if you don't do this, let's say you only lose 8 or 9% of moisture, your bread is going to be gummy. So you want to make sure that you lose about 10 to 12% of moisture. Okay. I think I gave you quite a few key points to that you can use in your gluten-free baking. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will certainly go live many more times, and I try to go live on a weekly basis. But that said, I also want to tell all my followers that I'm going to do a challenge. It's a gluten-free, plant-forward challenge. And those who have followed me on Eat Like a Vegan Chef know what the challenge is about. Um, it's fun. You get together with a lot of other people. It's free. Um, we in this challenge, which is about 2 weeks plus 1 week of getting ready, getting organized for the challenge. Um, we will let go of gluten for the entire time. It's quite easy if you have the right resources, and I will show you what to do, how to do. I will give you the meal plans. I will give you the um, resources you need to master this challenge. This challenge is for those who want to feel better, who want to uh, get away from gluten, want to transition to a plant-based lifestyle, and of course, if you want to lose weight, that challenge will help you. Um, okay, that said, I also would like to um, talk about my bread mixtures because that's the very reason I created All My Loaf. Because when it comes to gluten-free bread, um, it's either you like it or you don't, and that's why I created my mixtures. You find them at allmyloaf.com, and they're very easy. You just add water. The instructions are right here on the back. You add water, you let it rest, and then you bake it, and that's all you have to do. It is so easy. Um, a child can do it. Or, I had a client who had no baking or previous baking experience at all, and he did it, and he said he loved it. So um, I created Oh My Loaf for those who are gluten sensitive or want to go gluten free. Um, I'm not advertising to celiac um, people with celiac because my products are made in a shared kitchen. Obviously, I do my due diligence to keep the kitchen clean and keep cross contamination to a minimum or zero. But it's not certified yet, so I cannot tell you that it is certified gluten free. Um, yeah, so right now I have a promotion going on for the next 10 to 15 days. You get 10% off additionally to all the other discounts you will get if you order on Oh My Loaf. Okay, so you can uh, you can go to Oh My Loaf and order any order, and you get 10% off of that. Okay, so let's see if we have any more questions here in the chat. Okay, I don't see any questions here. Okay. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Uh, oh, here. Okay, Helen. Hi, Helen. Okay. Okay. So, Helen, are you able to see this presentation now? Your question is, I don't understand your question. Uh, you're saying I can only find this presentation on my phone. It should be visible on your computer as well. Um, and definitely after the show, you can definitely go to YouTube or to my Facebook page, Oh My Loaf, and see the recording there. But I'm hoping that this Q&A has helped you a little bit in your gluten-free uh, venue, so in a gluten-free baking venue, so to speak. And I I invite you to check out my gluten-free mixes. To me, they are a game changer. It was a game changer for me because for the last 2 years I have been experimenting with them, and but yeah, so give it a try. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Good. I will go live again next week. If you have any questions in the meanwhile, um, post them in the chat, or you can email me or find me on Instagram or Facebook and just message me. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. It's a pleasure, and I hope you got something out of it. Again, you'll find me on ohmyloaf.com, and yeah, follow me on Facebook, follow me on YouTube for up-to-date information. Thank you so much, and yeah, I'll see you next week.